If you are a believer and you've always felt like God had uniquely designed you to care for his orphans and widows, but you have no idea how to go about doing that, well, this video is for you. Hey, my name is Lucrece Bundy. I am a believer and I am an adoption lawyer, and it's taken me very many years to get to where I am today, to feel really rested in where God has me today, as he has also called me to care for orphans and widows. Now, before we get kind of started in the video, I really want to talk to you guys about just how calling may not really kind of be what traditionally we hear in the church nowadays. So after many years of praying and wrestling with the Lord, what the Lord has shown me specifically is that our calling really as believers is to love the Lord our God and to love the people that he's placed around us. And that's our calling for every single child of God everywhere in the world. And so that's our calling. But then God also has specific assignments for us in different seasons of our lives. He gives us giftings and he gives us, unique talents and all that kind of stuff. And those talents and giftings and stuff is really because of the specific assignments that he has for us in different seasons of our lives. Or you could say like the way that he has uniquely built us to even see the world and to see issues and problems in the world, right? Some people are more bent towards, I'm going to end human trafficking. Other people are more bent towards like, we need to do something in politics, and others have a burden for different things. And God has he placed like different pieces of his heart in all of us so that we could bring his kingdom in different areas of life. But our calling in general is to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And that's whoever God's placed in front of us in every season of our lives. So that's a calling. So really in this video, I want to talk about the assignment, right? If you feel like an assignment God's given you in any season of your life, or he has uniquely designed you to care for orphans and widows, then this video is for you, okay? Because what I find with most people that really feel this tug to care for orphans and widows, it's because God's really placed that unique part of his heart in you, and he's really giving you that assignment to go and fight for children in need, to fight for those who don't have a voice, and to be an advocate for children in need, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of how that looks like, and just really encourage you in this video that if you are one of those who's always felt like God had uniquely designed you to care for orphans and widows, that's part of your assignment, but you have no idea like what that looks like, then I hope that my journey and my story encourages you. So from a very, very young age, I always thought it was an injustice that there were kids on the streets who had no food to eat, they had no water to drink, and they were just being left to die. And I remember watching infomercials on TV and seeing this happen and thinking like, how can people just walk past these kids and not do anything? And I would be so enraged on the inside. And this was even before I gave my life to the Lord years later. So I had always, for as long as I can remember, I always felt this great injustice and compassion for kids who didn't have a home, for orphans, and also for widows, for women who were just in really hard places and who didn't have anybody helping take care of them and their children. And so over the years, after I gave my life to the Lord, he really started showing me how that injustice, that compassion I felt for kids was actually from him, that he had uniquely designed me to actually bring a solution to just to help children in need, like all over the world. And so when I started realizing, and when God started showing me that that was part of the way that he built and designed me, I had a picture of what I thought it should look like. I thought I was going to travel all over the world, and I was going to be building orphanages everywhere, and I was going to literally scoop children off the streets and place them in these orphanages. I've heard people that were doing that, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to join this ministry in Uganda. I'm going to go to Sierra Leone. I'm going to go to this Asian country. And I just had this big dream of what it meant like for me in my life to care for orphans and widows. But that's not what the Lord started doing in me and what he had me do in different seasons since then. So my journey started with, I just decided to go to law school. When I was in college, I didn't really know what I was going to do after I was done. I was actually a theology major. And then I decided to go to law school. So I went to law school, and really at that time, I started hearing about foster care a little bit. And I knew that there were kids in foster care, and I just thought, man, like, gosh, parents are abusing their kids. That's just so wrong. That same kind of injustice that I felt with kids on the streets all over the world, I started feeling with kids that were in foster care. And I decided, okay, I think I'm going to go and I'm going to advocate for kids in foster care and just be a voice for them, you know? And so I got into foster care and worked in foster care as, in juvenile court, I should say, as a lawyer for about 3 to 4 years. I'd say more like 3 years. And when I was there, I really saw all the different sides of the foster care system. I was a lawyer for the foster children. I was a lawyer for the parents who abused their kids. I was a guardian ad litem in a lot of cases. And so I really kind of got to see the entire picture of foster care and started realizing that, oh my goodness, like I just had such a heart for the kids who were stuck basically in the system through no fault of their own. But for me, I wasn't caring for orphans and widows. I didn't think that's what I was doing. I was just working and I was just helping kids who needed help. And it wasn't until a few years later, as I was wrestling with the Lord about, God, like, gosh, I'm a lawyer and I love what I do and I love that I'm caring for foster kids, but I really want to go and build these orphanages. You know, God, why don't you let me do this yet? You know, why isn't it time? And he started showing me how he had a heart like modern day orphans were foster children, and how what I was doing that season was caring for orphans, even though it wasn't the idea or the way that I pictured that it should be. And so, you know, I had my adoption law practice. I stopped working in juvenile court for several reasons, and I'll probably post a video about that another day. But then I just started doing adoptions as part of my law practice. And so what I primarily do in my law office is I help families finalize their adoptions. So I do all different types of adoptions. I do domestic adoptions, private adoptions, step-parent adoptions, international adoptions, all kinds of adoptions. But even through that journey of doing the legal side of adoptions, my heart was really yearning again for, God, I want to like build orphanages, you know, like I want to start a nonprofit and I want to help like kids who are really on the streets out there. Like we don't see that in America as much as we see it in other countries. And so again, the Lord started showing me that just doing a step-parent adoption, that kid that didn't have a father now has a dad because that stepdad stepped in or that stepmom stepped in and started caring for that child. And me being a part of that process, I was helping legalize that family and make them whole. That was still his heart in caring for orphans in a way. And so my point in telling you all of that is, you know, I had an idea of what I thought it would be like to care for orphans and widows, but the assignment that the Lord has had for me in these different seasons of my life so far didn't look anything like I thought it would in caring for orphans, but that's exactly what I've been doing. It just looks differently than I thought. And so I want to encourage you, you know, if you're in that place where you're like, man, I know that I want to do something with children in need. You know, I don't even know what it is. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to start. That was me for years and years, just not knowing what to do and really kind of fleshing out like, what does it actually mean to care for orphans and widows? And it seems so big, like I had to do something so big to be able to care for orphans and widows. But wherever the Lord had me, like I said, he started showing me that whatever you're doing right now, where you have your hands to, or you're being obedient to, you are caring for orphans. Like you are sharing my heart to those kids and you are helping those families come together. So I want to submit the same to you, that I want to encourage you to pray and ask the Lord, like, what do you have for me in this season? What does caring for orphans and widows look like for me in this season of my life? And really handing over that dream that you have or whatever you think it's supposed to look like, hand it over to the Lord. Because what happens a lot of times is when we have the big dreams, it seems so big that we don't do anything because we don't even know how to tackle it. But what we do instead is we look at the small things like volunteering at a youth camp or being a CASA. We look at those things that they're so small that we don't really see how that fits into God's eternal plan for caring for orphans. And so I want to encourage you that God is in the little things. Me being a guardian ad litem for all those children's years ago, I was able to influence them in a way that no one else could because I'm a believer, because I could speak life into them when they had all these other people around them who didn't know the Lord and who was abusing and taking advantage of them. So I had the honor and the privilege to step into that kid's life at that moment when they felt alone, they felt abandoned, just like orphans do. They had an orphan spirit, and speak life into them. Just like with how I've been able to do with my adoption law practice, is families who are coming, you know, they're looking to adopt a newborn, they have newborn to have children, or you know, just so many different situations. God's placed me to where I'm able to speak life into them and encourage them and remind them that the Lord loves them, that God honors their heart for wanting to have a family and that he wants them to have a family. You know, like he wanted children to be placed in families, and really honoring their heart to have children, because that's God's heart. He wants to place the lonely in families. He wants to place children in families who don't have a home. And so I want to encourage you, like I said, to really pray and ask the Lord, like, how do I walk this out in this season of my life? What does that look like? And do not despise the small things, because God moves in the small things. And the one life that you get to speak into, that life matters to the Lord. That's the soul of that one child matters to the Lord. If you volunteer at a camp where you get to impact kids' lives, that matters to the Lord, right? We don't have to fly to a different country to care for orphans and widows. We can do that right here in our community. Doesn't mean, again, that God doesn't have that assignment for others. I hope you get what I'm trying to say, is just being faithful with what God's placed in your hands today. Maybe 5 years from now, I'll end up in some country where I'll be building an orphanage. I don't know. Who knows? But I've learned to just let that go and trust the Lord, and just being confident in who He's made me to be. Continuing to care for orphans and widows the best I can with the resources given me today, and being content with that, and not constantly wanting to do all these grandiose things, and trusting Him for if He calls me there, a few years later, that I'll be ready, because I've been faithful with the small things that He's put in my hands today, that I've been faithful to and trusting Him in. So if that's you, and you're like, oh my gosh, Lucrece, you are speaking to me. I hear you. This is exactly what I've been asking the Lord, like, how do I care for orphans and widows? I don't know what to do. Will you comment below and let me know, say hello, so I can say hello back, all right? Thanks for watching. I hope this was really encouraging to you. Click on this link, this video next to watch, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye-bye.